Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. This is Mike, and this week I'm running solo because, believe it or not, Beth is yet again on another trip. I think we should just make some type of game every week. Where in the world is Beth G? Kind of like the whole old Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? And you guys can kind of guess where she may be or what she may be doing, because I really feel like in 2025, my wonderful wife has been gone more than she's actually been here. But the problem is Beth suffers from FOMO, or as Hank Hill calls it in the newest season of King of the Hill, FOMO. My daughter also suffers from FOMO. They both love to travel. They both have to have some kind of trip in front of them, or they roll into a deep depression. We talked about this in our Enneagram podcast. That's part of being a 7. You got to have that thing that you're looking forward to. And so when one of them plans a trip, the other one wants to go. And most of the time, that's what happens. So Maria, being the Disney adult nut that she is, not even last year, I think it was earlier this year, I believe. I don't know. I get it all confused now. But her and Beth ran the 10K at Disney World and both thoroughly enjoyed it and had a good time. Well, that inspired Maria to want to do what Disney calls the coast to coast. And this is where you run either the half marathon or marathon at Disneyland, and then you run the half marathon or marathon at Disney World. And so that's what Maria is doing. She signed up and she was going to run the half marathon at Disneyland this month. And then she's going to run the half marathon at Disney World next month because she wants the coast to coast medal. Well, Beth, hearing about this, could not let Maria have all the fun. So Beth agreed to go with her. And so they flew out yesterday to California. They met up with one of Maria's Disney friends that she worked with at Disney World. And they're doing some stuff before and after the race. I think today they're going to go tour their Warner Brothers studio lot. I think tonight they're doing Universal Studios horror nights. And the race is Sunday morning. I think they have to be at the park around 3 a.m. or so. And then the race starts at 5 a.m. because it has to be over before the park opens. So Beth and Maria are running a half marathon at Disneyland on Sunday morning at 5 a.m., which will be about 8 a.m. our time here on the East Coast. I guess the question that says, has either one of them prepared for this? You would have thought that since they have been signed up for about at least 6 or 7 months, that they would have trained. But the answer is no. Neither one of them have trained for this race. So they are out in California attempting to run a half marathon with 0 training. So I am fully expecting this to go well. And I say that with a lot of sarcasm. So anyway, that's where Beth is this week with Maria. I'm home by myself, which I'm not complaining about. It's just me and Josh, and we enjoy our quiet time. We sat at breakfast this morning. I fixed a little something for us, and I sat there and drank my coffee, and he sat there and drank his milk, and we hardly said a word, and it was beautiful. And so it was really nice. And so Josh and I are going to be enjoying this week of silence. So that's where Beth is. So why am I doing the podcast then? Why not try to squeeze in something? Because I've got a couple things that I would like to share about myself that are kind of, one is a long time dream of mine, and it's finally come to fruition, and it may not last, but hey, I gave it a try. The other is something I never thought ever I would be able to do, and it also has come to fruition, and I'm very proud of. So the first is I am now officially, I call myself a small business owner. I've mentioned on the show, I have been collecting comic books for 40 years, at least, maybe longer. And I've got thousands of comics. And so earlier this year, we had a bonus room, and we talked about this on one of the podcasts. I made it my goal to clean out our bonus room. And now that our two oldest are adults and our youngest is a high school kid, and he don't really go in the little bonus room, playroom anymore, I was going to capture it as my man cave. And so I started gutting everything and remodeling it to fix it up the way I want it. And so part of that was going to be not just getting rid of everybody else's junk that was in the room, but also to downsize some of my comics. And so I started selling some of my comics on Facebook Marketplace. I was selling them pretty rapidly and was making some money, and it was kind of fun. And one of the things that I've always thought about is how cool it would be to open up a little comic book store. I've had friends that have done that in the past with varying degrees of success. It's one of those things. I mean, there's a lot of little shops. I'd like to open a board game store. I'd like to open a coffee shop. I have all these little things I would like to do. I think I'm wired as an entrepreneur. I see that in ministry. I've come to realize that if I'm at one place for too long, I just get that itch to start something new. I'm a creator, and that's what I like. And so that's what's been beautiful about Project Re 3, even though I've been there going on 12 years. It gets to kind of reinvent itself the way that it has been structured, and the way it is a living, breathing organism. It seems like it allows us to kind of restructure and do some different things. So it makes it feel fresh every few years. I'm not the guy that could ever be at a church that's just a normal copy paste church like every other church in this world, where it's just the same thing year after year. I would go crazy. So I have that entrepreneur in me. I've started a couple of churches. I like creating things, and I'd probably create a store and within a couple of years be bored of it and move on. But one of the things I've always talked about is starting a comic book store. I ran into a guy that he bought some comics from me earlier this year, and he was telling me he was buying them for his shop, and he has a shop in a town close to ours, and it's located in one of these antique malls. And it's like the antique mall that has consignment booths. So people go in, they pay a certain amount of money every month, they set up a booth, people go there shopping, they pick up the stuff, they take it up front. You know, the person that runs the entire antique mall is the one who collects the money, marks it down on the computer, whatever. So you have a shop, but you don't have to man it. You're not having to pay salaries. You're just paying booth rental. And so he was telling me that's what he did. And so I went there. I'd never been to a shop. So a couple weeks later, I drove over and took a look at it. And it was really a great comic booth. I mean, it was tons of stuff, good prices. So I bought some stuff from him. I went back, a couple months later, and he happened to be in there restocking. And so we got to talking again because he recognized me. And I just point blank asked him, I was like, do you make money doing this? And he told me, he said, man, last year I averaged about $1,500 a month. He said, this year I'm averaging about $4,000 a month. And that's all I had to hear. And I was like, sold. And so in the town that I am in, Kernersville, we have an amazing antique shop. It's called Cooper's Vintage Village. And same thing, it's loaded with booths. I don't know how many. I'm going to guess maybe a couple hundred. And people sell all kinds of stuff from antiques to lamps to, records and albums. It could be anything, clothes. And so I was in there a couple of Saturdays ago and walking through there. And it just so happened, I was like, I'm just going to ask the owner, there was a couple of empty spots. I'm like, I'm just going to ask him what's going on. So I asked him, and he said, yeah, those folks, they've moved out already. They were going to move out the end of August, but they went ahead and moved out early. And I said, well, do you have any that aren't rented yet? And he said, I actually have 2. And he went and showed me the 2, and one of them, I really liked the location and the size and the price. So I said, I'll take it. And I just jumped on it. And I've spent the last week getting it ready, going over every day, setting it up, making it look presentable. My early life pre-ministry, I actually worked in retail. And so it was kind of brought back some of that retail in me as far as making things look good and how to display it. And I think it's a good looking booth. And so I set myself up a booth there, and it's been open now officially 4 days. So 4 days in, and I've already made some money. And so I've already, I kind of figured out in my head, this is how much I need to make each week in order to break even. And I have already passed that in the first 4 days, or 3 days, I should say. I don't know what's going on today. And then we still got the weekend. So they're open, obviously, this is coming out on Saturday. So they're open Saturdays, Sundays. They're open 6 days a week. So right now they've been open Tuesday through Friday. I'm recording this on Friday. So I know Tuesday through Thursday, I've made more than I had needed for my weekly goal. So that's been fun. And so I've been working like crazy. I still got a bunch of more comics that I can take over. I'm just working on it. And so that's it. So it's called, if you look it up on the Facebook, it's called Recom, RECOM. And we actually had, I did as a missions fundraiser, a comic book convention at our church a couple of years ago, and we called it Recom. Our board game convention is called Recon. The re coming from Re3, the con coming from convention. That's our board game convention. This one I called Recom, C-O-M. Re, obviously still from Re3, com from comic books. So we had a page dedicated to that. We already had a lot of people on that page that had attended or wanted to attend or keeping up with it. And so I just felt like, let's not reinvent the wheel. So I just called the booth Recom and went and adjusted the page from the Recom comic book convention to the Recom comic booth, and just updated that kind of stuff, and already had an immediate audience that I could, contact and email and advertise to. And so I think that helps. So anyway, that's announcement number 1. So if anybody's listening and you want to go buy some stuff, I don't just have comics. I have albums, I have CDs, I have board games, I have books, I have DVDs, toys. I mean, it's a nice little booth. It's not bad. And so I'm pretty proud of it. So if you're in the Kernersville area and want to stop by Cooper's Vintage Village, go to booth number 65. It's in the very back wall, against the back wall. And that's where I'm at. So Recom, check that out. The other big announcement, and this is part of my Big 12. I feel like with the opening of the store, the booth, I probably should make it my Big 13, not my Big 12. And I haven't talked about the Big 12 in a while. If you're new to the podcast, Beth had an amazing idea. We both turned 50 last year. And as her 50th birthday was approaching, she turned 50 in October. I turned 50 in August. As her birthday was approaching in October, she decided she wanted to come up with what she called her Big 12. 12 things that she had never done before in her life that she wanted to do within the next year. So before she turned 51. I thought that was a great idea. And I wish she had mentioned it to me prior to me turning 50, but she didn't. So even though I'd already turned 50 a couple months earlier, I went ahead and snagged her idea, and I just stole her birthday. And I said, all right, I'm doing the same thing. So Beth and I came up with a Big 12 list, each of ours. Most of them were different. There's some things that overlapped, which I'll get to here in a second, but we kind of came up with our own individual stuff, and that's what we've been trying to check the boxes off over the last, going on almost 12 months. And so come October 26th of this year, so, a couple months away, we'll see if we finished our Big 12s. An example of a Big 12 was visit a country we had never been to. So we both had that on our Big 12s. We both accomplished that and more. We visited a couple of countries this year we'd never been to. So we were able to check that off the list. So anyway, there's things like that. She talked about hers, I believe. I really haven't gone on the detail about what mine is. I felt like keeping mine secret, and then I would reveal, come that time, the end of October, I would reveal kind of what my Big 12 were and which ones I actually was able to accomplish. There was one that was on my Big 12 that I thought, man, there's no way I'm going to get this. Because I literally was writing things that just came to mind. Like, some of it was just crazy nonsense, but it was just like, I just sat down and said, all right, what's 12 things that would just be wild, or things that I have never done that would be outside of my comfort zone, that would be just once in a lifetime, maybe, who knows? Like, for example, one of them was take an improv class. I have no idea why I wrote that down, but I went and took a 3-week improv class, and I'm glad I did. And so that was a lot of fun. So I was able to check that off my Big 12. But one of the things I wrote down, and again, I have no idea why I wrote this. I wrote, write a book. I'm not a writer. I can write sermons. Obviously, I've been preaching for almost 30 years. I can write sermons as far as bullet points. That's how I preach. I have thoughts. I write them down in bullet points. And then when I speak, I just talk. I connect the dots of my bullet points. But I don't, some pastors, I have a friend of mine, Robert, he writes his sermons out word for word and essentially reads them on Sunday mornings and does so in a really cool way. Like, that's not something I can do, though. I can't write that. That's not how my mind works. I am not a good writer. And so I don't even know. I was like, I don't even know why. I even told Beth, I was like, I don't even know why I put write a book on here. Like, there's nothing inside of me that even knows how to write a book. So how did I write a book? Over the many years, especially I'll say the last 10 years, I would preach a sermon series, and that's kind of how I preach. I don't do random sermons. I usually do a 4 to 6 or 7 week series on a topic or a book of the Bible or something like that. And one runs into another, and you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a series. And at the end of some of those series, I would think to myself, this would make a pretty good book if somebody ever wanted to write a book on this. And thinking that I could just give those notes to a ghostwriter and tell them, write me something, that would do this. But never thinking that I could be the one that would do it. Now, again, because I'm not a writer, and probably I was too lazy. It would be too hard for me to do. So earlier this year, when Tim and I were looking at our sermon series for the year and talking through things, we were looking at our summer series. And I said, hey, back in 2020, I preached a sermon series on the armor of God that I think was really good, but it was 2020. I mean, 3/4 of the people weren't even going to church back then or listening or watching. The world was crazy. I mean, you had everything in the world happening. Nobody remembers anything. Well, 2020 and 2021 are like a blur. Nobody even knows what happened those years. So I said, look, we could preach that if you want. And Tim was all for it. Tim's like, yeah, let's do it. So I broke out the old notes from 5 years ago. And as I started going over the notes, I remembered that was one of these series that when I finished it, I thought, man, this would be a very good book. Like it's not going to be super long, but it's super practical. And so as we have been preparing each week for the sermons, and I've been re-preaching some of the sermons, and Tim's preached a couple, and Laura preached one. I fell in love with this topic all over again, and I just started taking the sermon notes and writing a book and trying to put it all together and have it make sense and have it flow, and actually write down the illustrations. Usually, like when I'm writing a sermon, on one of my bullet points, I'll just put example, and I may have a word or two that will just trigger a story that I want to tell. And so now it's actually writing the story out. And so I told no one I was doing this. I didn't even tell Beth I was doing this. And a couple of weeks ago, I took about 2 days and just locked myself in my room, in my office, and just, that's all I did. I was like, it's about done. I'm going to finish it. I got to format it. And I did. I finished it up. I sent it to Beth. I said, I wrote a book this year. And she was shocked. And she read it. And Beth's, she's a lawyer. She's used to reading and having to edit things and look at things. And she's a wonderful editor. And she went through and edited it and, fixed typos and grammar and things like that. Because I don't do words good, as I like to say. So she fixed that part. I then took it and sent it to a good friend and mentor of mine, Mike Willard, and asked him to read it. And I want to make sure that it's theologically accurate. Like, I don't want to do anything that misrepresents, what the Bible says, what Paul says, what the armor of God represents. I didn't want to do any of that. And so he read it and loved it and was more complimentary than he should have been, I think. He was very, very gracious in his compliments. So with those two approvals, I went to Amazon, and Amazon has the Kindle book distributors. And I'll be honest, I don't know how publishers are even still in business, really. I mean, I know you got your authors that everyone knows about, the big named people, whoever that may be, John Grisham, Stephen King, who knows? Even Christian authors, and I know there's publisher companies pay them and they write books and they put them out. But if you want to just write something on your own and not have to deal with publishing companies or inventory, say what you want about Amazon. It's the easiest and it's the best. So I took my manuscript, I formatted it the way that Amazon wanted it. I uploaded it, created a cover for it. I was just going to do an ebook, was kind of my thing. And I went through the whole process, and it got uploaded and got reviewed, which took about 72 hours. And then Amazon gave it a thumbs up. I think they check also not just to make sure everything looks right, formatting wise. They also check grammar and things like that, and will send me a list if there's anything wrong. But they also check for plagiarism. They check for AI. I mean, they run through some stuff, because they don't want to be putting stuff out there that's stolen. And so anyway, it sits in a review process for about 72 hours. They gave it a thumbs up, so it was all good. So Thursday night, my book was released, and I have a friend, we will call him Ross. He bought the very first copy. So Ross is a great friend, one of my best friends, and that was very, very touching. I sent it to him just to say, hey, look, it's live. And within 2 minutes, he sent it back and said, just purchased it. And I didn't expect him to. I didn't ask him to. So that was very nice. That was very touching. And so then I got to look it into, it gave me the option to create a paperback version or a hardback version, really, if I wanted to do that. But I thought, well, let's not get crazy. And so I looked into what it would take to do a paperback version. It was going to take a little bit more reformatting, the adjusting of the cover and the back and all kinds of stuff. And so I've worked on that today and went through Amazon's, they have kind of like creator. They call it, I don't know what they call it, book creator or something like that. I don't know. But, if there's something wrong, it puts up a little, red mark and they want you to go fix it. And so it took me a little while, but I got through it. And by the end, they gave me a green light. And so I submitted it for a paperback. So again, it takes 72 hours for them to check everything. So hopefully by Monday, again, this podcast is coming out on Saturday. Hopefully on Monday, my book will be live if you want a print version. But right now, you can buy it. You go to Amazon, the Kindle website, and you can look it up. The book is called Equipped. The book is called just simply that, just Equipped, and you can look it up under Michael Giannopoulos. I will also have the link on this podcast so that you can click on that directly and order the book if you'd like. I'm proud of it. It's not going to win any prizes. It's not going to get any gold medals. It's not a super long read. You could probably read it in an hour. I did include study notes, study guide, so that if people want to use it as an individual study devotional, or if they want to use it as part of a small group, they can do that. When it went live last night, this morning, I sent it out to a handful of close friends, and one of the people I sent it to bought it and read it already today, just devoured it and loved it, and said they can't wait till it comes out in print version because they're going to buy some and use it as a small group Bible study. And so that's great. That makes me feel good. I didn't do this to sell a copy. I'm not doing this to get rich. I just did it because it's something I never thought I would do. As I sat down, like I said, and did my Big 12, I tried not to overthink it. I just wrote down 12 things that in my heart just came to my mind immediately, not giving it any thought. And so take an improv class, write a book. Those were two of the things that were on there. And it happened. I'm not a bucket list guy, but it was kind of fun to have a list for this year to kind of push me to do that. But Equipped, it's on the Armor of God. Again, I think it's very practical. You can buy it, download the Kindle app. You don't have to have a Kindle, obviously. You can download it on your phone or your iPad or whatever it is. You can read it off there. But anyway, that's my two big announcements. I opened up a comic book booth and wrote a book. So September has been wildly successful for me. So if I don't do anything else the rest of the month, I feel like I've done a lot. And neither one of these may be successful. I may, as Chris Rock says in one of his specials, grand opening, grand closing. And that may be my Recom comic booth. I may, at the end of the month, not make another penny, and it's just a waste of money and time, and I just pull the plug and that's it, but hey, I tried. And the same thing with the book. It took some time, but that's all it took. I mean, at the end of the day, the beauty of Amazon is I'm not having to buy inventory. They take their cut out and then send the book. It's like a purchase and print. So they don't have to print up a whole bunch. It's just whenever people buy one, they print it up and they mail it. So, however that works. So, it's, low risk, high reward, for the book thing. But, anyway, that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been up to. So hopefully if you're in the area, you can stop by the booth. If you are interested, you can purchase the book, as it's now live. What else is going on? We did a poll last week. We asked people in our poll question, specifically, Beth and I had a whole discussion on the last podcast about celebrating birthdays. And she was disappointed because she felt like Jacob's birthday wasn't celebrated enough. And I tried to explain to her that he turned 22. It's not like a milestone birthday. He's also living an hour and 45 minutes away from us. So we actually drove pretty close to him and met him for dinner. So, but it wasn't like, it was just,
it was okay. It was nice. He had a nice night. We gave him some cool gifts, I think. But that's it. But she came home sad because she felt like he should have had more. And so it started this whole discussion on the last podcast about birthday celebrations. And so she wanted to put it up as a poll question. And so I did. The poll question simply said, when it comes to celebrating birthdays, is it not a big deal? Is it a big deal for only certain years? Or is every year a big deal? So after the podcast, poll question has been up a week. Here's the results. In the lead, every year is a big deal. 51% of the people said that. So I'm in the minority, but 51% of our listeners believe that every birthday is a big deal. Next is 28% with not a big deal. So it sounds like it's all or nothing. Either people could care less about their birthdays or they want every birthday celebrated. The camp that I fall in, which is it's only for certain milestone years. I'm thinking 13, 16, 18, 21. I think I made the comment to Beth, his next milestone birthday isn't coming until 40. I don't think turning 30 is that big of a deal. But to some people, maybe it is. I think turning 40 and turning 50 are big deals. But I don't know why 30 to me just doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But that clocked in at 21%. So only 21% of listeners agreed with me that the milestone birthdays are what needs to be celebrated the most. Again, 28% said birthdays in general are not a big deal, but 51% said every year is a big deal. I had a funny comment that was made on our Facebook page that I wanted to share because let's see here. I just pulled it up. All right. So it's Beth, and I guess via Beth, me, but definitely Beth. She went to college with a good friend of hers named Katrina. And so through Beth, I guess I am also friends with Katrina, although Beth obviously knows Katrina a lot better than I do. But Katrina has a kid, and I think he's like 16. And he or she, I don't know if it's a boy or girl, but Katrina has a 16-year-old, and Katrina listens to our podcast as a regular listener, and she commented on our Facebook page. She said, when I popped the podcast on in my car, my 16-year-old said, "This is ridiculous, but also pretty funny." I don't know if there's a better quote. That's exactly what I want Hey, Are You Still There to be. Ridiculous, but pretty funny. The stuff that Beth and I argue about and fight about, that is 100% real. That's why I thought this podcast would be humorous for some, because we don't fake anything. Like, we have these conversations all the time. 24/7, what you hear on these podcasts, the disagreements, the arguments, her thinking that my takes are stupid, me thinking that her thoughts sometimes are irrational, and getting into those debates. That's a natural occurrence. It's all we do is take a microphone, put it down in front of us, and hit record and just talk. And I love the fact that this 16-year-old said, "This is absolutely ridiculous, but it's also pretty funny." That to me, so Katrina, just let your child know they nailed it. That mission accomplished. That is exactly what I wanted when we started this podcast. And if you remember, the podcast was the very first thing on my Big 12. That's something I'd often thought that would be fun. And so last October, when we started officially kicking off the Big 12, one of mine was start a podcast, and this was the very first thing I was able to check off my 12. And so here we are, however many months later, 50-some episodes in, and we're still ridiculous and hopefully pretty funny. But thank you to everyone who follows along and listens. We do have a Facebook page. We don't plug our stuff, I know, a lot, but we just thank you for listening. We have listeners now in over 38 countries, almost every state, probably maybe every state, but I know last time I checked, almost every state was represented. It's great. The feedback we get, the comments, the messages we get are always fun. We haven't got any hate mail yet, thank goodness. So hopefully if people dislike it, they just don't listen, which is the adult thing to do. But yeah, you can follow us on the Facebook. Hey, are you still there? We have a website, heyareyoustillthere.com, which has all of our stuff. You can listen to us on any podcast service, Apple, Spotify, you name it. We're even on YouTube. We don't have video. I've asked Beth if she'd like to do video at some point, and she's kind of undecided, but they do. Amazon does actually have its own podcast. Believe it or not, I'm not Amazon. YouTube has its own podcast feature, and so it's uploaded there. It's also uploaded to a lot of other sites that host podcasts. So we're all over the place, and we appreciate everyone listening. If you, I don't know, ever want to advertise on Hey, Are You Still There? Just hit us up. We'd love to work out something with you. If you'd like to purchase my book, I would love for you to do that. Go and buy it, read it. If you love it, leave a 5-star review. Let us know. If you don't love it, don't do anything. Please just let it go. Be an adult. Yeah, that's about it. So Beth should be back next week. We get to hear all about her trip. So even though today I was by myself and obviously very Mike-centric, next podcast, I will be with Beth, but I am expecting it to be very Beth-centric, as I'm sure she'll have lots of stories to tell about her trip to California from Thursday to Wednesday. So sometime Thursday or Friday after she gets back, we'll record the podcast for next week, and you'll get to hear all about her trip out there and her marathon and Hollywood Horror Nights and backstage tours of studios and whatever else they did. I don't even know what all they're doing, but they're out there, and we'll get to hear all about that next week. But until then, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this has been Mike, and this is Hey, Are You Still There? See you later.